Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. On the crisp morning of September 15, 2017, the town of Maplewood awoke to a quiet dread that would soon engulf its residents. Nestled amongst the towering pines and gentle rolling hills of northern Michigan, this idyllic locale had a tight-knit community where everyone knew each other's names and secrets. School children were typically found kicking up leaves on their way to class, while parents exchanged pleasantries over morning coffee at the local cafe. But that day, as the sun rose slowly over the horizon, the shadows of something sinister stretched across the town. Just as the community was settling into its usual rhythm, a chilling 911 call shattered the peace. A voice, shaky and desperate, reported an unsettling discovery. A body had been found by a couple walking their dog in the dense woods near Maplewood Lake. The authorities arrived on the scene, and what they uncovered would ignite a heart-wrenching investigation that would unveil secrets buried beneath the town's tranquil facade. The victim was a local school teacher, known for her warmth and passion for educating the young minds of the community. As the coroner arrived to take custody of the body, the details poured forth like ink spilling onto paper. Bruises marred her pale skin, and there were signs of a struggle. The townsfolk's hearts sank, for this was not merely an incident, it was an affront to the very fabric of their peaceful existence. Within hours, the investigation had begun, but beneath the surface of grief lay a dark undercurrent of fear and suspicion. Who among them could commit such an act? As whispers floated through the streets, each resident became both detective and suspect in this unraveling mystery. The victim. In the days that followed the grim discovery, the life of Emma Bradford, the victim, became an open book, each chapter more shocking than the last. At just 32 years old, she was not a mere figure of authority. She had woven herself into the very fabric of Maplewood. As an elementary school teacher for nearly a decade, she inspired children with her vibrant lessons and boundless patience. Colleagues respected her, and parents praised her nurturing spirit. To many, Emma was a beacon of hope, a sparking presence in an otherwise placid community. Yet, investigators dug into Emma's personal life, uncovering a past shrouded in complexities. Her cheerful demeanor masked a tumultuous divorce that had left her reeling emotionally. Those close to her revealed that she had been grappling with the aftermath of a broken relationship, which had taken a toll on her social circle. This revealing insight painted a new portrait, one of a woman fraught with vulnerability, striving to find her footing in a world that seemed to pitch her from one storm into another. As word spread about her struggles, the community wrestled with the implications. Rumors circulated like wildfire, with whispers of jealousy, betrayal, and possible motive. Investigators learned that Emma had recently become involved with a fellow teacher, sparking both concern and intrigue among the townspeople. Had this new relationship culminated in something darker? Emma's loved ones gathered to grieve, yet within their sorrow, unease lingered. Maplewood's charm heavily relied on its grounded belief in neighborly trust. The brutal reality was that one of their own had been stripped of her future. Who could look beyond the smiling portrait and fathom the depths of despair? As the investigation intensified, the answers they sought seemed further away, slipping through the cracks of what they thought they knew. The crime scene. Beneath the cool canopy of trees near Maplewood Lake, the crime scene revealed a stark contrast to the kindness the town had always embodied. As law enforcement cordoned off the area, the air filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the sound of rustling leaves and the distant calls of birds. Yellow tape fluttered like ribbons against the backdrop of towering pines, a grim reminder of the horror that had unfolded just hours before. Investigators methodically combed the densely wooded area, their boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. The couple who stumbled upon the body had been walking their golden retriever along the familiar trails, an act that now stirred a chaotic blend of fear and guilt. It was not uncommon for residents to traverse the very spot where Emma's life had been cut tragically short. As officers moved cautiously, they realized the depth of the disturbance. This was not just a crime, but a visceral violation of their sanctuary. Emma's body lay nestled amongst the fallen leaves, partially concealed, an eerie contrast to the vibrant autumn colors that enveloped her. The coroner's team examined the scene with grim determination. Investigators noted the position of the body and the telltale signs of a struggle, scratches on nearby tree trunks, disturbed foliage, and the traces of a frantic scuffle etched into the earth. Emma's clothes were torn, further hinting at the violent confrontation that had taken place. A detective crouched beside her, surveying her once peaceful expression now twisted by horror. Emma's lifeless eyes stared blankly into a future she would never see. Each detail captured by the investigation would slowly unveil a narrative of fear, anger, or possibly even jealousy. The small town now found itself on the precipice of something larger, as residents began to realize that the true danger might lurk closer than they ever imagined. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, a chilling awareness settled over Maplewood, leaving its inhabitants trapped in a macabre tapestry of what had once been. The early investigation. Within hours of the grim discovery, the Maplewood Police Department sprang into action. Detective Sarah Whitfield, a seasoned investigator known for her unwavering determination, led the charge. As she stepped into the dimly lit station, the atmosphere was fraught with urgency. Officers gathered around desks strewn with case files, their faces reflecting concern that ran deeper than the task ahead. Each played a role in chasing down leads, their hearts heavy with the weight of loss. Detective Whitfield carefully tapped her pen against a notepad, where notes about Emma's life began to take form. The initial witness statements painted a picture of an ordinary, well-loved woman, yet behind the ordinary lay complications. She swiftly arranged interviews with family, friends, and co-workers, believing the key to Emma's life and death lay hidden in the shadows of her relationships. As the days grew shorter and colder, the investigation unfolded webs of connections. Emma's ex-husband, Mark, became a focal point. A tall man with a stern face, he had exhibited troubling signs of emotional instability post-divorce. Friends revealed heated exchanges growing increasingly emotional, where remnants of love morphed into resentment. But he had an alibi, placing him miles away at a business trip during the time of the murder. Detective Whitfield carefully weighed the evidence, questioning if unresolved feelings could lead to something darker. Next on the list was Emma's newer relationship with Jake, a fellow teacher. Friends mentioned they had been getting serious, but there were also hints of jealousy. During the investigation, detectives unearthed incidents of a confrontation between Jake and someone else in town, further complicating their understanding of the dynamics at play. Mapping out the tangled web, Whitfield felt the burden of clarity slipping through her fingers. With every conversation, she found herself confronting more questions than answers. Who among them could harbor such dark? Each person, now scrutinized, represented pieces of a puzzle missing an irreplaceable part. As the scent of autumn faded from the air, so did the innocence that had long defined Maplewood. The dead ends. As the crisp air of fall settled thick in Maplewood, Detective Sarah Whitfield faced the disheartening reality of dead ends in the investigation. Weeks had passed since Emma Bradford's tragic death, yet each lead fizzled out like a forgotten spark in the night. Starting with her ex-husband Mark, a thorough check of his whereabouts confirmed his alibi. Video surveillance showed him miles away, engrossed in a work conference. Next, attention had turned to Jake, the new romantic interest. Friends painted a portrait of a loving relationship, but under scrutiny, Jake's demeanor shifted into shadow. He mentioned an end-of-year staff meeting, claiming he hadn't seen Emma for days leading up to her death. Despite attempts to contact him further for follow-ups, he remained evasive. Whitfield sensed something beneath the surface anxiety that bubbled just below his calm exterior. The detective attempted to dive deeper into the lives of Emma's co-workers, hoping a small crack might lead to a breakthrough. Yet, the teaching staff seemed unified, rallying around their shared grief. When they spoke of Emma, the words echoed sentiments of regret and sorrow, but the truth remained elusive. One colleague, Amy, shared tales of a mysterious stranger lurking near the school, but further investigation led nowhere. It seemed an ungrounded urban legend rather than a viable lead. Even the phone records from Emma's last weeks showed little of note, a few routine calls to friends and family, nothing raising alarm. The community, once populated with whispers of possible suspects, grew quieter, fear mingling with uncertainty. The townsfolk toggled between confusion and anger, and some even directed their frustration toward the authorities. As Whitfield stared at the wall of evidence now turning to dust, the photographs, the timelines, the note, she felt the weight of impending failure. Maplewood was crumbling under the pressure of its secrecy. Each unanswered question festered with a growing urgency. Yet, deep within, she held on to a sliver of hope that somehow, buried within this tangled mess, lay the truth, just waiting for someone to find it. It was a challenge she was determined to face head-on, regardless of the darkness that had begun to loom. A break in the case. As winter approached, the landscape of Maplewood was transformed into a haunting tableau of frost and shadow. Despite the cold, a fire flickered within the precinct. Fueled by determination, as Detective Sarah Whitfield sifted through the evidence once more, her mind swirled with the details, the faces of friends and potential suspects intertwining, shadows swelling into uncertainty. Just when it seemed that frustration would swallow the investigation whole, a break emerged unexpectedly. Like a beacon piercing the fog, a local forensic analyst had been re-examining the evidence from the crime scene, delving into the finer details of Emma's belongings and the remnants left behind. Their sharp eyes discovered something overlooked amidst the chaos. A small fiber caught in the stitching of Emma's jacket, of a type not typically seen in the vicinity. It was a rare synthetic blend common to hunting gear. The realization struck like thunder. Hunters often traversed the wooded areas where Emma had been found. Armed with this new lead, Detective Whitfield reached out to local hunting groups. A follow-up interview with the Maplewood Hunting Club ignited a flurry of activity. As she dug deeper, a name surfaced. Ben Larson, a local man with a reputation for aggressive behavior. Eyewitness accounts described him as a regular presence in the woods, often boasting about his prowess in tracking and hunting. Indeed, more than a few residents had whispered uneasily about Ben's temper, particularly after losing a heated game of poker, where he revealed his dangerous side. Whitfield's instincts kicked in as she arranged for Ben to be questioned. In evening light, uncertainty hung in the air as the detective faced him, a man who wielded a rugged charm that belied darker undertones. When asked about his whereabouts on the night of Emma's murder, Ben initially remained calm, but a flicker of something fear or guilt gleamed in his eyes, moments before he deflected with half-hearted alibis, too convenient to be credible. It was the first tangible lead in what felt like an eternity. As Whitfield left the meeting, a sense of urgency pulsed through her veins. This could very well be the turning point, the crack in a wall that had seemed impenetrable. In the heart of Maplewood, the shadows began to tremble at the prospect of truth edging toward the light. And with it, hope for the community hanging by a fragile thread. The suspect. The investigation had taken a sharp turn, with Ben Larson now firmly in the spotlight. Detective Sarah Whitfield felt a surge of energy as she shared the details of her findings with her team. The atmosphere in the precinct shifted. Murmurs of cautious optimism filled the room. Ben's history and potential motives coalesced into a portrait of a man whose anger might have driven him to violence. As her colleagues reviewed additional evidence, Whitfield focused on eliciting a confession. She knew that truth sometimes lay behind the most unpredictable responses. She arranged to bring Ben in for questioning, setting the stage for what would come next. When he arrived, his demeanor was one of forced nonchalance, the confident facade of a man who believed he could manipulate the narrative to his advantage. "Thanks for coming in, Ben," she greeted him, gesturing to the empty chair across the table. "I want to clear up a few things regarding Emma Bradford. We need your side of the story." Ben sat, crossing his arms defensively. "What do you want to know?" "I had nothing to do with that. You can ask anyone. I was out hunting that night." Whitfield stayed calm, scrutinizing his every gesture. "Witnesses have placed you near the woods. The fibers found on Emma's jacket match your hunting gear," she stated, allowing a pause to sink in. "So why not be honest? The truth will come out eventually, and it's better if you tell it first." As the interrogation progressed, minute changes whispered through Ben's demeanor. A prick of sweat dampened his brow, a slight twitch in his fingers. He shifted in his seat, the bravado slowly melting. With each question, Whitfield pushed gently, not wanting to send him reeling into aggression, but steadily unraveling the threads of his story. "Did you have any arguments with Emma? Were you angry about something?" She probed, watching closely for any cracks. A long silence lingered as Ben's face grew tense, muscles flickering like a coiled spring. "Well, she didn't return my calls," he muttered, the disdain coating his words. "I thought we were friends. I thought she wanted to spend time together." The truth hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Noted the slip. The frustration behind his words hinted at deeper emotions: jealousy, perhaps rage. Although she had no incriminating evidence yet, she sensed she was circling closer to the core of a threat. Ben Larson was emerging as a suspect steeped in histories of anxiety and aggression, capable of the unthinkable. As the interrogation continued, Whitfield knew that the small details mattered, that with every moment they were edging closer to piecing together the true motive and perhaps unveiling the heart of a crime that had shattered a community. The trial. As winter melted into early spring, The once still air of Maplewood transformed under the weight of a tense anticipation. After months of investigation, the day of Ben Larson's trial arrived, bringing with it heavy hearts and a sense of somber resolve as the townsfolk filed into the courthouse. The familiar halls now flooded with whispers and murmurs, each person drawn into the throes of grief and excitement for the truth to be served. Detective Sarah Whitfield sat in the front row, her notes neatly compiled, a testament to the long hours spent documenting every detail of the case. The atmosphere buzzed with palpable tension as the gavel slammed down, signaling the start of proceedings. The courtroom, a square box of wood and light, held the weight of lost innocence, and there was no escaping the sorrow carved under every face. The prosecution began its case, outlining Ben's troubled past brushes with aggression, his troubled history intertwined with Emma's. Now, a string of witnesses took the stand, each recounting Ben's heated interactions with Emma, painting him as a man who harbored resentment and bitterness. The tales built up an image of a man driven to the edge by jealousy, revealing layers of an unstable personality that hinted at deeper issues underneath. But the defense fought back fiercely. Ben's attorney presented an alternative narrative, branding him a victim of circumstance. There was no physical evidence linking Ben to the crime scene, they argued, pointing to the lack of DNA or reliable eyewitness testimony. The frustrations of a heartbroken man do not make him a killer. With the trial unfolding, tension twisted into a vice grip over the courtroom, moments alternating between profound silence and uproarious anger. Ben remained calm, masking his emotions as the prosecution delivered their closing arguments with heavy hearts, summoning the memory of Emma, life lost, a community shattered. The words resonated deeply in the room, and Whitfield watched on, remembering the shine in Emma's eyes when she inspired her students, a stark contrast to the silence left in the wake of her death. Ultimately, it was the jury's responsibility to weigh the evidence, to sift through the smoke of anger and the light of truth. As deliberations began, anxiety sat heavy in the air, like a storm waiting to break. Outside the courthouse, viewers sought solace in the very essence of Maplewood, its beauty, now shadowed by fear. In that uncomfortable pause, the collective heartbeat of the town echoed the questions simmering beneath the surface. Was justice possible, or was it merely the flicker of a flame extinguished too soon? The trial had become more than just a fight for one woman's life. It had become a battle for the soul of the community. And as the jury continued to deliberate, the fragile threads of hope, fear, and solidarity intertwined, creating a tapestry that would forever alter what it meant to belong in Maplewood. The aftermath. Days stretched into a week after the jury's verdict, an eternity marked by shadows and uncertainty that loomed over Maplewood. When the announcement finally came, Ben Larson was found guilty of second-degree murder. An eruption of conflicting emotions swept through the town. There were those who wept tears of relief, believing justice had been served, while others grappled with the sense of finality that left emptiness in its wake. The sun broke through the dreary clouds on that fateful day, illuminating the courthouse steps where the townspeople gathered. News reporters clamored for sound bites, their cameras flashing like a disorienting storm. Detective Sarah Whitfield stood amidst the crowd, processing the whirlwind of emotions that engulfed her. The victory felt bittersweet. Another life would be lost behind bars, one that had been intertwined in the very fabric of their community. As the reality of Ben's conviction sank in, the community began the slow process of healing. Vigils were held for Emma Bradford, a gentle gathering by the lakeside, where she had once roamed freely, laughing with students and friends alike. The air filled with candles flickering like stars against the twilight, a peaceful homage to a life taken tragically. Stories were shared, voices raised in unity, as they vowed to carry forth Emma's legacy, to nurture the next generation with kindness and love as she once had. Yet beneath the surface, fractures laced through the community. Rumors swirled about the trial, about Ben's motivations, and whispers cropped up regarding other residents who had crossed paths with Emma in more shadowed contexts. Trust, once a hallmark of Maplewood, felt fragile, replaced by a hint of suspicion that hung like fog. The darkness hinted at unseen rifts, making it difficult for neighbors to know whom to rely on, who to hold accountable, or who might hold secrets of their own. Detective Whitfield found herself involved in community discussions, working to mend the invisible walls that had begun to rise. She organized town hall meetings aimed at facading the fears that crept into ordinary conversations. "We mustn't let a single act of violence define us," she urged, her voice strong yet saturated with empathy. "We must strive to understand each other, to work together, to rebuild what may have been lost." As spring unfolded, the landscape of Maplewood glimmered with new life, yet the scars of trauma remained visible. Emma's legacy became not just about loss, but also about the need for introspection, communication, and compassion. Community members began to see the truth. Healing would take time, and in that healing lived the potential for transformation. In the echoes of sorrow, Maplewood began to find its strength anew, conjuring bonds forged in resilience as they turned towards the future, guided by the memories of a vibrant spirit who would never be forgotten. Reflection. As the sun dipped low over Maplewood, casting long shadows across the time-worn streets, Detective Sarah Whitfield found herself standing by the edge of Maplewood Lake, where Emma had once inspired so many with her enthusiasm. It was a moment for quiet contemplation. The air held a peaceful stillness that seemed a stark contrast to the tumult that had shaken the town. Memories washed over her, the vibrant laughter of children, friendly exchanges at the market, and the echoes of hope that once resonated through community gatherings. In the wake of the trial, she often reflected on the fragility of that hope, how quickly it could be dashed by the solemn reality of violence. Yet, throughout the chaos, moments of clarity emerged. The resilience of the human spirit, the power of unity in the face of hardship. Emma's legacy had ignited a flame within the town, inspiring its residents to prioritize connection and understanding. In the days that followed, Whitfield became increasingly involved in outreach, working with community organizations meant to strengthen bonds and foster open dialogue. Her role transformed into something more than that of an investigator. She became an advocate for healing, dedicating herself to ensuring that their loss would serve as a catalyst for positive change rather than a source of lingering fear. As the seasons shifted, so too did the tides of Maplewood. It was no longer just about what had been lost, but rather what lay ahead. Life continued, the community woven around threads of camaraderie and support, all anchored by the resolve never to forget. With the lake's gentle ripples as her witness, Sarah vowed to keep the flame of hope alive, allowing the beauty of Emma's spirit to guide them towards brighter days. And so here, at the water's edge, she offered a silent promise to Emma, to herself, and to Maplewood. And they would rise together, stronger and forever changed, against the dark tide of betrayal and violence.